Alright, so this video is over topic 2D, which is graphing and writing equations for lines. Please make sure you have the resource sheet from Google Classroom open. I'd highly recommend you print it off so you can do this by hand so you don't have to sketch these graphs. So if you can, please print it off. So pause the video, try and print it off now. Okay, so picking up here, from this resource sheet, you can see down the bottom left on the first page that it has y equals mx plus b. This is the general form of an equation of a line. Now you'd be like, well, Mr. Graber, we wrote it differently the other day where we had growth. And we had figure 0 in there with the y and the x. Well, m is another word for growth, which is our slope. Okay? So slope is our m, which is also our growth. They're just all the same thing. It's how much are we changing by, and that's what m is. So we're just trying to write this equation in a shorter form, so that's why we're using m. And b is our starting value, which is our figure 0. Okay, that is our figure 0. That's what we had to start with, the figure that we had to start with. So that's why we also call the b our starting value. Okay? So that's our starting point. That's another way of people saying it. All right, so starting point. All right, so here we go. So for number 1 on the side, we are given the graph of an equation, or we are given the graph of a line. Okay, so we first need to figure out what is, so we were trying to find out for a graph of a line, we know that the equation is y equals mx plus b. So we need to always figure out what is my m value, what is my b value. So trying this one here, we first always, the easiest one to do is find the b value, which is your y-intercept. Okay, that is your figure 0. That is your starting point. So your b value is your y-intercept. So I'm going to go on the graph, I'm going to find my y-intercept, and I see it's right here at 4. Okay, so I'm going to put a 4 in for my b. Now to find slope, what we did in the past is we found another point on the graph, so I'm going to mark it in yellow, and I'm going to mark that point, and we make our slope triangle. So I'm going to make it here in green. So I make that slope triangle here. In reading from left to right, we see from the yellow point, first following the green line to get to the red line, we go 4 to the right, which is plus 4. And then after that, we go up 2, which up 2 is a positive 2 on this, because we're increasing on the change in y. Now, for slope, we're going to use these numbers, and we got to remember that slope is change in y over change in x. So our change in y is 2, so I'm going to put the 2 on the top, and our change in x is 4. Now you might be like, Mr. Graber, that reduces. Yeah, we always need to write this in simplest form. So 2 over 4 reduces to 1/2. We always want our slope in simplest form. Now that we have our m, which is our growth, and we have our b, which is our y-intercept, which also is our figure 0, we can write our equation. So writing this out now, we can go y equals m, which is our slope, which is 1/2, times x, so that's just going to stay x, plus our 4, because it's positive 4, so we're going to say plus 4. That there is our equation of our line for this one. Okay, so now going on to the next one here. You're going to do the same thing. We're going to need to write our equation of the line, which is in y equals mx plus b. Okay, this is for a line, so it's y equals mx plus b. So we need to find the m value and the b value. Same thing. I'm going to put in red, we need to find the b value, which is the y-intercept. So I'm going to find out where does the graph cross the y-axis. And I see that is at -3. So my b value here is going to be -3. Now I'm going to go find another point here on the graph for this. So I see it crosses right here. I'm going to mark it in green. Okay. And we just need to make our slope triangle now. So I'm going to make my slope triangle here between my 2 points. So for this, we go down 3, which going down means -3. And then we go right 1, which means plus 1. Sorry, my dog's barking right now. So once we have that found, now we can do our slope triangle, or we can write out our slope, which is change in y over change in x, which change in y here we see is -3, that is up and down, so that's -3, over our change in x, which is a positive 1, which is 1. And -3 divided by 1 is just -3. So now that we have our m and our b values, we can go ahead and write out the equation. So our equation is going to be y equals m, which we know is -3, so -3, then x. And our b value is a -3, so we're just going to write -3 for that. We don't need to write a plus sign there because the minus, or negative will take care of that. Okay, so we have a -3 for that one. So now I want you to try problem 6. I want you to pause the video and try it, and this one we will go over in class. But do not stop watching the video because we're going to continue on after after you attempt this problem. Okay, so picking up here now. Now we have the opposite. I give you the equation of the line, and we need to graph this. So looking at this, we need to find what is our slope and what is our y-intercept. So I'm going to circle the slope here, and that is always right in front of the x, which is our 2/3. So I'm going to write that out. Our m is our 2/3 here. By the way, this is on the back of your resource sheet. And then my b value is, I'm going to circle in green, is a +1. So I'm going to write a +1. Okay. So once you have your slope and your y-intercept found, we just go ahead and graph. And we know that the y-intercept is our b value. So I'm going to go to mark that point because it's in green. And that's a +1. I'm going to go on the y-axis and go +1. I put the point. Now, the slope is the hardest part here. So I'm going to go, and you got to remember, it's change in y over change in x. Change in y is up and down. And it's a +2, so I'm going to go up 2. I'm going to draw my triangle here to help out. I go up 2. And then my change in x is 3, so I'm going to go right 3 from there. Once you go up 2, then over 3, then you can put your point. So I'm going to put it in yellow here. That's where our new point is, after we went up 2 over 3. If we were to try it again, to go up 2 and over 3, you would see that we would fall off the graph. So we can't do that. Okay, we need to make sure we stay on the graph. Now, you might be like, well, I already have 2 points. Can I just draw the line? We need to try and have 3 points when we graph this. So I'm going to go back. And we're going to go now from the green point, we're going to go the opposite way. So the opposite of going up 2 would be going down 2. And instead of going right 3, it would be go left 3. And then once you do that, you get your coordinate, which is right there. Now, once you have your 3 points graphed, you just draw your line. So I'm going to draw it here in blue. Now, you should be using a straight edge when you do this at home. Okay? You should be using a straight edge. Now, you'll notice I went all the way through the line, or all the way through the points. I didn't just stop, and I put arrows on there. You need to make sure you put arrows because it continues on. Okay? Now, with this, one way to help yourself answer if the graph is right is look at your slope. Is it positive or negative? This slope is positive, so your graph should be increasing, and our graph is increasing, so we know we're correct. That's one way of helping check to make sure that you graphed it correctly. All right, so going on to the next one, I'm going to do the same thing. We need to find our m value, which is our slope, and our b value. Our m value is -3. That's right in front of the x, so it's -3. Our b value is the -1. We need to take that negative sign with it. That's a -1. Now, just like we did before, first thing, graph your y-intercept. I'm going to keep it in red here. Our y-intercept is a -1, so that means on the y-axis, I'm just going to go down 1, and I'm going to put a point. Now we got to do our slope. Well, our slope we've always written as fractions. That's why it's change in y over change in x. So we got to figure out what is -3 as a fraction. And if it's just an integer like this, or a whole number, just put it over 1, because -3 divided by 1 is just -3. So I'm going to write this over 1. You need to do that. Okay, you need to do that. Now we can do this. We can do our slope. So I'm going to make these points in blue. Okay, so -3 is our change in y. Now I'm not even going to write the triangles here. Okay, I'm not even going to draw my triangles. So that means I go down 3. So 1, 2, 3. You can see the little dots I put. Okay, those aren't coordinates. I'm just doing that to help myself count. And then we have a +1 in the bottom. So that means we go right 1. And then that's our final point. So I'm going to put my big dot there. That is the coordinate that the line goes through, that point. Okay? Now you notice if you were to go down 3 over 1 again to the right, it would go off the graph. So let's go back to our y-intercept and let's go the opposite direction. So instead of going down 3, let's go up 3. So 1, 2, 3. And we got to go left 1 now instead of right 1 because we're doing the opposite. Okay, so I put that point there because that's where I would end up. So if we try going again from there, we could also go up 3 and left 1 again. And we'd get another point on the graph. Now, go ahead and draw your line. So I'm going to draw it in yellow. Make sure you draw it all the way through your points. And you put your arrows at the end. Okay. Now the last question you ask yourself, is this graph increasing or decreasing? And you see that this graph is decreasing. So look at your slope. Is your slope positive or negative? It is negative. So they match up. If this graph is decreasing, the slope has to be negative. Okay, and they match up, so what's correct? If your graph was increasing and had a positive slope or had a negative slope, you know you made a mistake. Okay, you know you made a mistake. All right, last one here. So this one you're going to try on your own. You're going to come to class with this, ready to go, and we're going to go over this one and the one that you tried before in class.